This is the deck tech for my Tibor and Lumia deck, affectionately called Pursuit of Flight. This used to be the sleeves and box for my Keranos EDH deck, which is lightning art based, but I figured red blue deck, we can repurpose these things here. I like to have things that match, just nicer. Alright, so we start off with our flight enablers. We have Student of Elements, which flips over because all my creatures flying. The Docent of Perfection, which gives us a nice little bonus to our wizard sub-theme. Make them all into insectile aberrations to help us close out the game if we need to. The Archetype of Imagination, which, giving all my creatures flying is a bonus, but most importantly, it makes all my opponents lose flying, which is key for this, especially given Tibor and Lumia's second ability, where every red spell, Tibor and Lumia dealing 1 damage to creatures without flying. It's going to be very important as you see as we go. The Homura Human Ascendant, which when it flips is a global Shiv's Embrace for all of my creatures. A Chrome's Memorial has 2 good keywords on there, which is protection from red and flying. Flying is key center of the deck, and the protection from red helps us protect ourselves from Tibor and Lumia's ability. I had trouble with this deck until I heard about Josh Lee Kwai's Tim deck. I wasn't figuring out where I was going with this, and then, falling into Tibor and Lumia's ability, and then other sorcery speed sort of stuff, maybe a couple pingers here and there. I came up with this Goblin Sharpshooter, which lets you reuse its ability when you kill a creature. Though it's not a wizard, worth it because of the reusability. Niv-Miz the Firemind, reusable ping, card draw, and is a wizard. Wojek Ember Mage lets it hit a lot of creatures. I can't hit players with it, but being able to scattershot a bunch of creatures, especially against token decks, is a pretty sweet compromise. Ember Mage Goblin, not being able to search up for other Ember Mage Goblins is not even really important. It's a wizard and lets me hit creatures or players. Sequita Firewalker. I'm not sure how often the can't be targeted rest spells or effects comes up, but it's nice to have. But it's another Tim. We have Classic Tim with new art and new Classic Tim, just to help us get in there, and as homage to our inspiration deck. Cunning Spark Mage, even though not a wizard, haste is pretty important because you never know when you need to lay down something and just start pinging right away. Speaking of pinging, we have ways to make the most of our damage. So we'll start with Charisma. Ideally, Charisma goes on Tibor and Lumia to steal all the creatures that don't fly all at once. Granted, Tibor and Lumia are only 3/3, so they're kind of fragile, but this can definitely swing things in your favor for a little while people try to figure out how to remove your Charisma or Tibor and Lumia. The Sword of Kaldra, much like Charisma, except for instead of stealing the creatures, we are exiling them. Unfortunately, this hits your creatures too, which is why we want to give all of them flying. Same with Basilisk Collar. As you can tell, I'm running a lot of foreign cards in here so far. I've also called this deck Trust Exercise, because if you don't know what the cards mean, take my word for it, or we can look it up on Gatherer, whichever. But the Death Touch Lifelink has come in handy more times than I care to admit. So we have our tappers, we have our flying, but here's the real fun right here is untapping. Look at all this untapping. We got this, we got some of these, look at that, all of that in there. So we'll just skim down here like this right here. We have to play snow permanents, which are going to be our mountains and our islands later, which also helps when people are trying to be cheeky and run their snow covered lands for their extra player lens. Then we get a benefit off those as well if they happen to be blue and red. So go us. Tidal Elemental, not a bad value. The untapped target permanent is what I want more than anything, not just creatures, and we'll see why there. Creatures are fine and all, but unpermanents are great, are better. Artifact creature. This lets me untap individual in the auras, and so it's good for the specific creatures. Could also use it to go onto a Tidewater minion. You untap maybe something that's tapping for 2 blue mana to generate a lot of mana. Adds, neither here nor there. There are a few ways to generate obscene amounts of near infiniteness. So we'll go through that a little bit later. Plus the Shroud and Flying goes really well with the deck. The good old Mind Over Matter. We can draw a lot of cards. Drawing is not difficult. Being able to pitch those cards to tap or untap a permanent is ridiculous. And we'll show you why. The 4 blue of the cost there is part of the biggest reason why, because of Nykthos, which we are running in here most definitely. Freed from the Real, as we saw in Pemenzora. Untap enchanted creature. 1,000-Year Elixir, Pseudo Haste, and untapping creatures. And the Majorite Stone, which lets us untap a creature with an activated ability with tapping the cost, which we have, as you can see, several. It brings us back to all of our untappers and creatures we'll see coming up. We have our ramp, which is just gorgeous because these are pretty and painted. Cold Steel Heart because of the snow artifact, and we have our Task Mage in there, which we want to be able to activate. Soul Ring and Mana Vault because they are good. Coalition Relic. I don't like Coalition Relic in most decks because it's not, what's what we're looking for? Efficient. Yeah, it's not really efficient reliably enough. In this deck, though, because I can untap it multiple times and charge it up, giving me an explosive turn, which is super sweet. I'm a big fan of. Same with Guild Lotus. This is just good, but being able to use it multiple times in the turn is better than most people are going to get out of their Lotuses, whichever is the plural. Rhyming Cryomancer, which is another creature that counts our snow permanents. It is a creature that lets us Trick Bind. Think about that. Let that sink in. A reusable Stifle. As long as it's an activated ability. I mean, we can get triggered stuff, but activated abilities. Oh, and use your fetch land? No. You have to take care of my 2/3 human wizard and waste your resources to do so because this is gravy. I don't really care. This is gravy and is target removal, absorption, and just a hindrance, which is fun. Disruptive Pit Mage, Disruptive Student, and Patron Wizard are our creature-based counter spells by just tapping to add additional ones. Brings back to the Wizard sub-theme, and just ways to tap can actually make that add up really quick. We do have some regular, just generic counter spells in Counterflux and Counterspell. Good old-fashioned counterspell. And some versatility in Mystic Confluence and Izzet Charm. Izzet Charm is everything I've ever wanted in a card. It takes care of creatures, it takes care of spells, and it draws cards. I mean, I love it. It's not as strong in EDH as some other things, but the versatility is definitely important in a red-blue deck. Mystic Confluence is really just everything you want. It's not quite... What's the card? It's Cryptic Command. Not quite Cryptic Command, but it's definitely very versatile, and being able to choose 3 modes and multiple is very good. Which also brings us to other things that draw us cards, which is kind of deep here. Hold on. Alright, here we go. So, we get things that mix our burn and drawing cards, which is always fun. Because I mean, the apotheosis of red and blue is drawing cards and lighting things on fire. Plus, you get some sweet Izzet flavor in there. Desperate Ratings, Faithless Looting. I'm not terribly concerned about thing discarding stuff because I'm just digging deep for things and there's a lot of redundancy. Case in point, Archivist, Arcanist, Magus, and Azami Lady of Scrolls. Repeatable card draw is ridiculous. Archivist is a 1/1 for 4 that lets you draw a card. Not so bad, but when you are drawing 4 or 5 cards a turn with untap abilities, it gets out of hand pretty fast. Magus of the Wheel can help us get that fresh hand we need when we've played everything out. Some removal. We want Shattering Pulse. The buyback on that is really when you, it's not a Shattering Spree, but being able to use it over time. Plus instant speed is really handy to sink all of our mana into when we get our engine going. Turn and Burn, because really it kills gods. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It kills gods. It takes care of Avacyn. It takes care of pretty much everything that we can't handle, unless that's protection from blue. But that's neither here nor there. Cyclonic Rift, because sometimes things just need to go away. Polymorphous Chest, because if things are too big and I don't have any tricks, I want to be able to turn them into little frogs and then wipe them out with Tibor and Lumia. Chaos Warp, Vandal Blast, just good cards. And we have a few just utility creatures here. Serendip Sorcerer and Vishnu Heretic. Destroys artifacts and helps us deal with large creatures, which is always fun. Hearth Charm can lets us get in there with our wizard sub theme, or can give artifact creatures. They exist. The power Turlos Unblockable, not as important, but the first two come in handy. Pyroblast, because nobody expects their blue stuff to be blown up after the effect or to be countered with 1 red mana. Plus, it's funny. Anger, because haste. Teleportal, legitimately one of my favorite cards. I don't see this played nearly enough, but let's just take a look at it. Red, blue. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn and is unblockable. +1/+0 until the end of turn. I legitimately always forget that's there because I get caught on the overload for 3 in blue and red, and that replaces target to each. So each creature you control gets +1/+0 and is unblockable until the end of turn. So if you've generated tokens through the Docent of Perfection, or you just happen to have a bunch of little wizards out, you can actually push in for some pretty interesting damage and close out a game with a teleportal. It's happened more than once, and it's hilarious every time. Ral Zarek, because he is the red and blue planeswalker that I love the most. Saheeli wouldn't fit in this deck because there's not enough artifacts that merit her abilities. And I built this deck before I even had a... what was his name? The greatest thief in the multiverse. I can't even remember his name right now. That's how little I play with him. But I like him because you get to untap. And you get to tap and untap. 2 different things. You get a lightning bolt, and if you're feeling frisky, you can flip a bunch of coins and maybe take some extra turns. And that brings us down to our lands. We got our duels, Sulfur Cement, Sulfur Falls. Shivan Reef, not Yavimikos, that's the blue-green one. Command Tower. Is it Boilerworks? I usually don't like the Karu lands, but with the tap untap abilities, being able to produce multiple mana with 1 land is important, as Nykthos, Temple of False God, even Lotus Veil. Sacrificing the 2 lands is not a huge deal when we are tapping and untapping a Lotus Veil for mana, because it is an uncounterable Black Lotus, or a Gilded Lotus if you will, and it's just, look at that. It's pretty. It's super pretty. Nobody plays with this card that I've seen. and it's a John Avon land full of lotuses, whatever the plural of lotus is. Man, Dust Bowl, um, one Maze of Ith, because when you can untap a Maze of Ith, it's like you can shut down on a small army. Arcane Lighthouse, Thawing Glaciers. Again, relying on the heavy tap untap effects, we're going to run on more basics because we can use this. Because importantly, you return the Thawing Glaciers to your hand at the end of turn, so it comes to play tapped. The next turn, you tap it, pay one, generic, tap it, look for a basic land, put it into play tapped. And then you can untap it and do it again. And as long as you have untap abilities and mana to blow, you can just rip basics out of your deck and toss them into play. Reliquary Tower because Reliquary Tower. Riptide Lab because legitimately I have a lot of wizards. I would like to save them or play them again. Minimum School at Water's Edge because untapping legendary creatures is funny and untapping. Bunch of snow-covered mountains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to be exact because it's kind of light on the red. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 snow-covered islands. Yep. They're so pretty. Look at those. Just so pretty. So frosty. And that is Tibor and Lumia in Pursuit of Flight, inspired by Josh Lee Kwai's Tim deck. I sacrificed the green because I felt I could get mana another way, and I could focus on wizards, doing wizardly things and making my opponents cry with this lovely duo of wonderful Izzet magic. Thank you for sticking around for the whole thing, and if you have any comments, questions, please put them on the bottom, and I'll see what I can do. If you have any other suggestions for things, like if you want to see any more of this, let me know. I have no idea, but it's kind of fun. I like building and explaining decks that I play because I don't get to play very often, and it's fun to share. So thank you for watching again, and have a great day.